Welcome back, everyone, to the No Such Thing as a Fish Comic Relief Marathon. We are here tonight to do a massive, long, 20-hour podcast in aid of the most brilliant charity we know of, Comic Relief. We usually, as a podcast, would do 4 facts per episode, but tonight and tomorrow morning, up until tomorrow afternoon, we are doing 35 facts. We're doing 35 facts with 35 guests, talking to them for 35 minutes each, all in aid of Comic Relief, who are celebrating their 35th year. And we're going to move on to our 14th fact of the night now. And we did actually have a friend of ours who was booked, Paul Chowdhury, who unfortunately has fallen ill. And so we needed someone to step in at the last second. And who else better to go to than the person who basically is the god of the comedy audio marathon. This is someone who's not only done, we're doing a pathetic 20 hours. He's done a bunch of 24 hours. He's done 36 hours. This is the great god and creator of this whole concept of the marathon. Please welcome, for our 14th act, Mr. Mark Watson.
Hey!
Yes!
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Mark.
Hi, Mark.
I was worried I wouldn't be introduced as a god, but
I got your text just before I started introducing you. So
generally is the minimum that I require.
It's quite a niche god, isn't it? I thought that was quite insulting. It's like being the god of a mantelpiece or something, you know, like the god of the audio comedy marathon.
It's as gods go, it's quite a small jurisdiction, I have to admit. Yeah, but then to be fair, you don't want to be the god of everything, because then your responsibilities are enormous, you know. I think if you have to be a god, you want to have quite a small area of influence.
Then you can just really nail it.
Exactly, yeah. Whereas if you look at the actual god, he's got loads on all the time, I imagine. People are praying about all sorts of stuff as we speak.
You don't get blamed all the time when audio comedy marathons go wrong. They don't say, Mark Watson, why have you forsaken me, or whatever it is.
No, that's the other thing. I don't have as many followers as the actual god, if we believe in him. But as you say, my responsibilities are much lighter, yeah. I imagine it'd be enormously stressful being a full-time deity.
Yeah, and he is screwing it up quite a lot along the way. Understandably, as you say, it's a burden.
Well, we had technical issues before this show started, and for our first guest, which was Michael Palin. So I'm glad you're here to take some flack now. What the fuck are you doing? Where were you, mate?
I've got to hold my hands out. I took my half the ball with Palin.
Also, Stephen Fry had some problems. He didn't used to believe in gods until then, and now he's.
I feel really bad. Just for whatever reason, my ego as a god dictates that every time someone really famous is on, I have to try and fuck the show up.
Harry Mulligan is absolutely screwed.
These people are a threat to me. I mean, Fry, is a huge name. I can't. Michael Palin. God, I can't. I was saying to Rob, who's one of the people running this show, has also run my 24 hours streams a couple of times. So I've had some insight into what it takes to keep one of these things on the road, technically. And the idea of grappling remotely with Michael Palin's Wi-Fi is stressful even to think about. I can only imagine what your stress levels were like.
He was such a champion. We made him repeat his fact about 5 times with enthusiasm. We're like, come on, Michael, let's do this again. They'll hear you this time, we promise. Anyway, let's get into your fact. So it is time now for fact number 14, and that is Mark Watson.
Yes, so this fact you have to accept was meant to have been delivered by Paul Chowdhury. It's relatively newly delivered to me. But the fact is, in 1977, Stanley Kubrick sneaked onto a James Bond set in order to secretly make the lighting better.
You delivered that like you'd known it your whole life.
Oh, listen.
Are you going to take some questions now, Mark, on that fact?
I'm the guy that wakes up every morning and thinks about old Kubrick sneaking onto that set. Don't worry about that. It's pure coincidence that I've been given a vehicle for my...
Finally. It's as if the god had turned all the wheels towards this moment.
It's a real relief. No one ever wants to talk about this.
Do you know anything further about this? Why is he sneaking on? Has he got permission? We can help you out.
I have been given this information. He was invited onto the set, but he had to sneak onto the fake super tanker. It's The Spy Who Loved Me. That's what film it is. He wasn't meant to be there. But basically, Kubrick believed that he would do a better job of managing the lighting than the director, which is sort of quite insulting. So Kubrick is the boss, it says here, of the set designer. So Kubrick must have been in some sort of exec position on this film. And but I imagine if you're the director, you don't want someone like Stanley Kubrick to clamber onto a tanker and start dicking about with your lighting.
Well, I don't even think he had any association with the movie at all.
Right. He just was allowed to.
It was an old lighting guy who used to work on Kubrick films. And weirdly, they had a falling out and they hadn't worked on another film together. But then the lighting just wasn't working. And this guy called Kubrick and said, listen, can you just come on and just consult on how we can make this better? And Kubrick said, I'm only going to do this if there's no one around.
I see what you mean. I thought he must have some association with the film to be able, but no, he was just Stanley Kubrick and he thought, well, I'm going to clamber onto this tanker. Yeah.
Pretty cool.
It's much like you secretly sneaking aboard this show, to be honest, at the last minute.
It's a lot like this. I'm the Stanley Kubrick of this organisation.
Help us turn this tank around, Mark. We need it. What? So hang on, The Spy Who Loved Me, that's late Roger Moore, isn't it?
It sounds. I'm not a Bond expert, but that sounds like Roger Moore era. I think
almost all Roger Moore ones are late Roger Moore ones because he was about 60 when he took the gig.
He was born as late Roger Moore, basically. It's very hard to.
I love about Roger Moore the fact that he once said Daniel Craig is by far the best actor to have ever played James Bond. I think that's good humility. You know, he knows his place. And it's not humility, the best actor.
It's also not. It's also a bit of a burn on Connery, Lazenby, Brosnan. I mean,
everyone else. Yeah,
it's nice if he says, "Oh, he's a much better actor than me." But if it's a role where 6 of you have played it already, I think it's a little bit of a dick move.
Yeah, he's basically said he's a much better actor than me and all these other pricks.
He took him down with him, sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was Ken Adam, wasn't it, who was the production designer?
Ken Adam is the guy's name.
On this, and he had worked with Kubrick before on Barry Lyndon, which, if you guys haven't seen it, is a crazy film. But he'd worked with him, and he said it was such a traumatic experience that at the end of it, he said he was never going to work with Kubrick again. He had huge respect for him, but I think just found it a very stressful experience. But so he just said, "Look, just for this bit, you got to come," and came in secret. And he said that Kubrick would have loved the secrecy of it anyway, because he was that kind of person. He really liked a bit of subterfuge, a bit of a thrill.
Yeah, he did the moon landings, didn't he? I mean, you don't get that gig without a bit of subterfuge.
Where were you 10 minutes ago, Andy, with Dr. Maggie and that theory? Left me hanging with the moon's artificial. Cheers, mate.
That's right. Kubrick's most famous for perpetrating the greatest fraud on humanity that there's ever been.
The lighting on The Spy Who Loved Me must have been doddle.
Have you just been talking about the moon conspiracy theory?
We just had Dr. Maggie Adrin Pocock on generally talking about the moon.
Yeah,
we actually, because she is a doctor, we actually try to avoid conspiracy theories as much as possible.
We tried.
So you can go for your life.
I find it really interesting because I'd like to know how somebody thinks that a conspiracy of that magnitude could be kept secret for this long and everything. Like it's just maybe they don't think about it in that much depth, but
the main thing is that there were lots of Russians working on it as well, and if they had any evidence at all of it being a conspiracy, that would have come out by now.
I reckon someone's got drunk and blabbed about it by now if they know. Yeah,
there are so many people doing the filming that you'd think maybe the focus puller or one of the grips
or the best boy.
Yes.
Well, that's surely this is a huge moment for the best boy. I always think that. I think that with everything, every conspiracy theory I've heard, like I suppose 9/11 is a complicated one, but all of these things, my first thought is how many people would have to know? It's at least 200. Can 200 people all keep a secret? No, definitely not.
There's a thing that conspiracy theorists point to sometimes, which was the Manhattan Project, and how it was a conspiracy of parts. So many different bits were built in very different places that they
no
would
one knew
not
the
know
whole picture.
Exactly, and they would hire people who didn't speak English to do the janitorial stuff, because if they saw a piece of paper that had a bit of English information on it, then they wouldn't understand it. And I think conspiracy theorists, to a large extent, play that game. They think it's the many pieces and that's why they look to all these disparate places to form their one big theory.
Right. Unfortunately, the Manhattan Project was so well executed that it's made everyone it's given conspiracy theories a good name.
Yeah. Well, this is actually relates quite nicely back into our topic of conversation, Stanley Kubrick, because he did a very similar thing. So he ran a team of secret readers, but none of them were allowed to know that each other existed, and none of them knew what they were actually reading for. So these were people for it was a phony production company that he sort of set up as a front for this called Empyrean Films. And he employed people whose task was to read and review novels and screenplays constantly to try and find Stan's next hit. But they never knew what they were doing or who they were doing it for. Read, review, feedback.
That's fascinating. And also just imagine having the power to set up a kind of shadow organization like that. Imagine being so influential you could just make people read long books for no apparent reason.
Yeah, they don't even know who you are. They didn't even know it was Kubrick. They were like, it's someone powerful.
It's great because, with a lot of subterfuge, you're like, all right, you have to crack this code or translate this bit of Russian. I love the thought of someone being given a 500-page novel saying, you must read this immediately. I can't tell you why, but it's a matter of national security.
I mean, to be honest, that's a lot like what we do at QI, isn't it? John Lloyd, he gives us a really long book and he says, just read that.
Actually, if anyone wouldn't find the idea of emergency intellectual research strange, it's you guys.
Hey, I found a really cool thing that's in London that I had no idea existed. And I think, Mark, you live in London, don't you, as well?
I am in London, yeah.
You're in London. Okay, so at St. Catherine's Docks in London, there is, so the 2001 Space Odyssey movie that Stanley Kubrick made, the famous monolith, the big black monolith, right? That wasn't the original design. The original design was a sort of clear polymer monolith, and it was built by a nicely named company, the Stanley Plastics Company, which might have been his connection. But he rejected it, and then they went for this black monolith. But the original is now in St. Catherine's Dock, and it's up on a wall, and you can go see it. It was part of the Queen's Silver Jubilee celebration in 1977. So it's got this sort of crown on it, and it's put up on against the wall. The original intelligent monolith where you can gain. Really? Is in London. So cool. I had no idea.
I didn't know that, and I also, again, imagine being the sort of guy that could just commission a monolith and then reject it and ask for another one. Most of us will never even have one monolith made, let alone two.
He was a perfectionist, wasn't he? I mean, that's the thing about him beyond anything else. Like looking for a single door to be featured in Eyes Wide Shut. I believe he sent one of his children around all of London taking photos of every single door so that he could look at all the doors. And if it wasn't all of London, it was definitely all of West London. He was obsessed with that kind of detail.
Wow. He wasn't willing to fork out to actually employ someone. He just palmed it off on his kids, did he?
Fun project.
I've got kids. I'm always looking for ways to, occupy them. But I'm not sure how well it would go if I said, go around London and give me a briefing on every door. Was it Eyes Wide Shut is the longest ever film shoot, is it, or something like that?
I think so, yeah.
I think it's just because of the amount of time that he spent dicking about making Tom Cruise walk back and forth through the longest multiple takes and all this sort of business.
Yes.
I think most takes ever was in The Shining, according to the Guinness Book of Records, and that was 127 takes for a time when one of the characters was swinging a baseball bat.
Yeah, I think it's an axe scene, isn't it? It's Shelley Duvall when she's going really crazy and smashing the axe.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I've done, little bits of TV, and just you're so conscious of the crew and the guy with the clapperboard, the guy that's marking it, the woman that's got a camera in your face. Even when they say take 4, you feel really sheepish. I'm sorry. Imagine being there and someone says take 122. You definitely want to die.
I was chatting to a friend of mine who's in Hollyoaks, and she was there was something in the thing where there was a poisonous mince pie. And she had to eat some mince pie, but you had to see her eat it because it was part of the thing. And they did 32 takes of that. So she had to have 32 mince pies.
That's extraordinary.
Just imagine it. It's like people imagine sort of the director going, come on, we're going for one more and all this, this big ball stuff. But yeah, what I always visualize is the poor bugger that's holding the the boom pole, or just
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
guys on quite low wages that are like, really, 120 takes? Okay, cool, yeah.
Also, can I just say, poisoned mince pie? What a fantastic sounding Hollyoaks plotline
That is,
I mean,
absolutely.
they have good ones.
That's a great show.
Yeah.
See, Kubrick wasn't coming up with those sorts of ideas.
No, he wasn't.
No.
He went in a different direction.
No, that's real. That's keeping it real. Poisoned mince pie. Kubrick, if anything, his vision was slightly wider than that, maybe.
It went in a different direction.
Yeah. Someone just mentioned The Shining. Who was it?
Oh, yeah. Anna and James.
So, you know the thing where Jack Nicholson's character is typing, and he's typing. This isn't a spoiler, Dan. Just so I'm sure you've seen it already.
I've seen it. Yeah, don't worry.
Okay, great.
I'd be amazed if Dan hadn't seen The Shining.
Earlier on, Mark, Dan threw a strop because we gave away the ending to a TV show that ended a few years ago. Anyway, it was a whole thing.
What was it?
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones. I didn't even give away the ending. I didn't say a thing. Dan's been promising he's going to catch. Look, this is beside the point.
I feel like by now you've either seen it or you haven't. Probably.
Well, that's what I said.
Let's not get back into this.
All right,
sorry.
Earlier.
Hey, Mark, have you ever read Anna Karenina?
I have indeed. Yeah.
Oh, that's got a good ending, hasn't it? Yeah.
Has that been a sore point as well? For
Yeah, that's a genuine sore point for us generally.
Yeah.
We tend to give away the ending to that pretty much most weeks on our show, and they get a lot of abuse
actually,
for it.
I've heard that. I've heard that. If anyone's listening to this or watching this and they're not aware that Anna jumps on the old tracks by now, then not quite the ending, is it? The final 80 or 90 pages are just old Levin on his farm. Finally uniting his ideas with the pastoral and the spirit. I read Anna Karenina twice for whatever reason.
My God, the true ending. We've not been giving away the ending of Anna Karenina.
After Anna dies, there's a really long, weird bit that Tolstoy had to put in because of his. Anyway, we don't need to talk about it.
You've had strong agricultural opinions, okay? And I won't go words against Levin. He is the love of my life.
It happens that Karenina is one of my specialist subjects, but we're not talking about that.
That's what we should have done the facts about.
There's but The Shining. Okay, The Shining. So he's typing out all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy over and over again, right?
Yeah.
But Kubrick pointed out, or he considered, that the sound that each key made on a typewriter was very slightly different, and he wanted it to be completely accurate. So,
oh God,
the film was being. I know the
foreign version. You even think about it.
I know, and it was being done in other languages too. So he translated this phrase that Nicholson was typing over and over again into idiomatic German and French and Spanish and Italian, and he reshot the scene every time, and he put the different translations into the typewriter for Shelley Duvall to find. So the Spanish phrase is "No por mucho madrugar amanece más temprano." No matter how early you get up, you can't make the sun rise any sooner. Which is a perfect thing to type over and over again if you're going back to the hotel.
Very Spanish that.
Yeah. But that was how perfectionist he was. He wanted the exact sounds to be right, and then he had to find a phrase to make the sound and translate the phrase.
Amazing stuff.
And on.
In case someone was watching it going, that the D on that typewriter sound. I don't think a D would do that.
The hotel that Stephen King. So Stephen King wrote the novel, which was then turned into the movie, adapted by Stanley Kubrick. King hated the movie, but the hotel that it was based on, because it was actually Stephen King stayed in a hotel, and he called it the Overlook Hotel in the book, but it was actually called the Stanley Hotel. So it's quite a nice connection with Stanley Kubrick. When it came to filming the movie, Kubrick decided not to film there and decided to go for a different hotel. And King eventually made amends of that by filming a TV series where it was in the Stanley Hotel. But the Stanley Hotel did feature in a different movie, not The Shining, but it finally got its big moment on the silver screen in Dumb and Dumber.
A very similar movie, I guess.
But yes.
I didn't even know that Stephen King hated the film.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, really dislikes it. Still to this day on stage, I watch a lot of his talks. I'm quite a big fan of his. If it's brought up, he's like, it just.
Why did he? Dan, why did he hate it? It's great.
He hated it. No, he hated it because it was obviously based on his work, and in the book there was a big plot that was quite deep and dark about alcoholism, and there was a lot of things based on his real life which kind of got kicked out from the movie. And the similar thing that Bill Murray had with Groundhog Day, he felt it should have been a deeper philosophical movie, but it was played out very different. Really? So he just took against it.
Actually, the same was with Anthony Burgess in A Clockwork Orange, apparently.
Oh, really?
Like Burgess kind of, he had other like things happening in the novel. It was kind of like there were Christian moral points and stuff in the movie, and then Kubrick made it without all those points in. And to start off with, Burgess was kind of okay with it, but then he got dropped in it once by Kubrick. Kubrick kind of in an interview just said, "Oh, this is your question to answer," or something, and then he really fell out with him. And in 1986, Burgess made his own stage version of A Clockwork Orange. At the very end, a man who looked just like Stanley Kubrick walks on, and then the characters just kick him off stage violently.
Really?
Slightly heavy-handed from Anthony there.
Yeah.
It's fun how all these people hand their work over to Kubrick, and then they don't like it, and eventually they just have to do their own one.
Yeah. And which ones have gone down in history, really, guys? You know, trust Stan the man. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's scaring the hell out of us.
Do you know what one of his favorite movies was? And let's imagine that this is a guy who obviously has high-end interests in film.
Was it Dumb and Dumber?
Stop on My Mum Will Shoot.
Marley and Me.
It's not.
Stop on My Mum Will Shoot is better. I should have gone for Where's My Car?
It was White Men Can't Jump.
Yeah.
He just sort of had a great tone, had a great romance story involved. He loved The Jerk as well by Steve Martin. And wanted to actually cast Steve Martin in the movie that he was going to make. I don't think it was in the last bit of his career. But White Men Can't Jump. Brilliant.
Kubrick directing a movie with Steve Martin in. It's like it's a great lost classic.
It really is. Well, someone he directed was Danny Lloyd, who was the guy who played Danny in The Shining. And if you look Danny Lloyd up now, he's 48 or 49. He's not retired. He hasn't taken early retirement. He's a biology professor at a community college, and he's got very fond memories. He didn't really do anything after that. He had no idea at the time that he was in a scary film. So this seems to be another one of Stanley Kubrick's I love to keep a secret things. But he thought he was just starring in a film that was a drama about a family living in a hotel. Which seems odd because there are some sort of screaming, quite traumatizing scenes with his mum and dad. But he no clue whatsoever. And actually, I think they showed him a version of the film about a year later, but with all the traumatic bits taken out. So he never had to see the adult version.
That's like, do you remember I did this fact on the podcast? And I had been trying to find where I had my source from. I haven't found it since, but Chuck Norris supposedly wanted to always show his movies to his kids, but he hated for them to see violent scenes. So he personally edited out all of the violent scenes from his Chuck. So they had to sit and just watch fightless Chuck Norris movies. Cannot think of anything worse.
Yeah. Jackie Chan wouldn't let his kids see any martial arts.
You turned to violence as a kid, wouldn't you, if you had to watch those films without those scenes?
I love this idea that Kubrick basically spent his career duping people into making films for him without really telling them why.
Yeah. No one knew.
There's a story apparently when he was doing Space Odyssey that, and this comes from someone who was his long-term attorney, saying that he wanted to take out insurance with Lloyd's of London while he was making the movie to protect himself against any losses in the event that we actually discovered extraterrestrial intelligence before the movie was released. Lloyd's declined apparently.
Really funny. Everyone's had the feeling of making something, or like a whatever it is, writing something, a book or something, and thinking, I hope no one comes out with this idea before. Yeah. But the idea of him thinking, shit, if there is an alien invasion, then this film's going to look so stupid.
We managed to land on the moon. Yeah. I'm going to be so...
tossing and turning on the night before the premiere of the film, thinking, shit, please don't let there be.
Just 12 more hours without the alien invasion.
Please hold out.
Yeah. Space Odyssey, he did something pretty naughty for a Space Odyssey.
Oh, yeah.
He basically chopped down and stole some invaluable and protected trees. This is in South Africa. There are these trees called the cockaboo or quiver trees, and he saw them and he loved them, and they look kind of, you look them up, they look sort of very exotic and prehistoric, and he thought that's perfect for Space Odyssey at the start. I need these. So he said to his screenwriter, can you get them? And the screenwriter said, look, they're really old. They're like 300 years old and they're all protected. I'm not allowed. And he said, look, just take them anyway. Could you? Just go in at night. And he said to his screenwriter, don't say that you're working for MGM. Pretend you're working for Fox. And
he couldn't have said, pretend you're working for a tree surgeon or, for the government or something.
You might as well take down your rival while you're there. But it got him, and there's this amazing story of the trees being transported. So when they were cutting them down, the group got attacked by hornets and almost driven away. They managed to get them into this truck.
Hornets have been in there for 300 years. Pretty angry. Really ready to go after someone at that stage.
Yeah, it was like waking a genie in a lamp.
Yeah.
Really, had to stretch out. Then they shoved them in a truck, and someone tossed a lit cigarette into the back of the truck and set fire to the whole thing. So they had to ditch all these flaming trees into a river. Fortunately, they just drove further downstream and picked them up a few miles later, where they'd been put out and they were pretty much intact. And he put them back upright and put them in the film.
Unbelievable. I mean, these days he'd just get them on Amazon or something.
Yeah.
But he would probably go to the Amazon.
He'd really would, yeah.
Sorry, go on, Matt.
I don't. It's something about the ego of the auteur, someone like that, just be like, for the trees to be 300 years old and everything, and him like, yeah, but I'm making a movie here.
Yeah.
I think just chop them down and worry about the trees later. It's kind of horrifying, but you sort of admire it in another way, partly, which is a lot of what you hear about Kubrick. You think, what a dick, but it also would have been quite fun to do something with it.
Yeah. What a dick, but good on you, mate.
Have you seen the Napoleon film he made?
Well, no,
he never made it.
Right. Yeah.
It was his greatest unmade film. He did the research for it, and when I
You're trying to trick me into saying, "Yeah, I've seen it."
If we'd all tried to bluff that, there we'd be in trouble.
Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness!
I think I saw it at a party. I think
he assembled. I mean, he did all the research for it you could possibly do. He employed 20 graduate students to research Napoleon, and they made this incredible historical index. It's a cabinet of index cards. You could pick any day in Napoleon's life. You could go to the index card for it, and it would tell you what he had for breakfast.
Wow.
It would say what Josephine was wearing at dinner. And this was for a film he didn't even make. I mean,
and the 20 grads didn't know that each other was doing it.
20 grads were in different cities all over the world. They had no idea.
They all believed it was their gig.
Yeah.
I just discovered just a few days ago, I was walking in a park and I bumped into my neighbor called Chris, who lives up the road. And Chris, we started, he's a big movie buff, and we were just having a chat about movie. I mentioned Stanley Kubrick, and he said, my dad was Stanley Kubrick's stationer. So, as in, he provided his pens and his papers and so on. And that was very exciting to hear, because there's a fantastic John Ronson documentary, as well as a journalistic piece that he wrote in Lost at Sea, the book, where he talks about the fact that when he went to Kubrick's house, he was invited by Kubrick's wife. He was going through all of Kubrick's materials. He was seeing the Napoleon stuff that no one had seen, all of the old scripts. He started noticing that the boxes that they were in were unlike boxes that he'd seen before. I think that's the way he kind of noticed it. And then he got told, Stanley Kubrick hated the boxes that he was buying from shops so much that he designed his own box. He would call up his stationers and say, I need the box like this. And he would call up. So Chris's dad ended up, not necessarily, I don't think, doing the boxes, but he ended up knowing Stanley quite well without knowing the man at all, because he was so particular about his stationery. He loved green pens. He would spend 5 hours at a time on the phone with Kubrick going, no, I need this kind of green pen. I need it to have this kind of thing. I need the paper to be this kind of shade.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he was an obsessed man.
Who's got a favourite type of box?
Can I just say, Alex, who's doing all the work on this podcast behind the scenes, he definitely has a favourite.
Fair enough.
Box.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I can't imagine looking at a box and thinking, nah, it's not right. I need to I need to design my own type of box.
Mark, I can't believe it. Time has flown, and we are about to have to say goodbye to you. Just before we let you go, and thank you so much for doing this
it's been really fun.
Stepping in.
I mean, it's been fun to be in Paul Chowdhury's life for a little while.
So we've got quite a few hours ahead of us. You've done this a bunch of times. How do we A, keep the stamina up, but B, how do we raise as much money as possible? We're now sitting on 16. We've just gone over £69,000, which is amazing.
That's incredible.
Thank you everyone for doing that.
That is fantastic.
Thanks. We're kind of going for $1 million though. So what? In context, not so. But what would you say? What do we need to do to help raise some more? Do you think?
Well, it's a little bit of a different thing. But what we've done in the 24-hour shows is just had people bid on stuff, like people that are watching maybe draw something or make something. Basically, I did a couple of marathon shows for Comic Relief as well.
Yeah.
In theatres, and a lot of my tactics for fundraising hinged on just auctioning absolute nonsense items and people just being tired and emotional. So basically, the longer it goes on, the more you should try and offer stuff for auction, because if people have been watching the whole thing, their emotions will be all over the place and they'll have lost perspective, and they might accidentally pay 10 grand for just like a piece of paper or something like that. Don't be afraid to screw people via auction. That is my main tip.
Okay, amazing.
I'm going to save this bit of pizza, I think.
If you're already at 70 grand, that is I'll check in the morning and see where you're up to, but like you're doing fantastically. Keep it up.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah,
Thank you
so much for coming on.
But we're so
pleasure.
We're so happy to have found a space for you to come on.
I'm really glad.
We're kicking ourselves that we didn't go to you to begin with, and so this is kind of our happy ending for this whole thing. Really, it's that we managed to get you in. So thank you so much.
Quite a long way to go.
Running in 12 hours.
I'm saying the narrative of what we're doing.
Are we done? Oh, thank God for that.
Yeah.
And Mark, you've actually got one coming up as well, don't you? You're doing one in Melbourne.
I'm doing one sort of supposedly as part of the Melbourne Festival, so all online in about 3 weeks' time. Yeah, but that's 24 hours. So it's a different genre, really. The 20-hour show is its own thing.
It's got a completely different arc, hasn't it?
Exactly. Yeah,
it has a happy ending 12 hours in. Yeah.
No disrespect, but a 20-hour show barely gets going, really. But good luck to you. And I've got my kids here and everything, so I'll be up quite early. So I'll see how you're doing in sort of 7-8 hours, and you'll be nearly there by then. But if you're watching as well, do donate, because if you're doing one of these things as the performer, every donation just inches your morale up that little bit, I think. Yeah. Even if it's a tiny amount, it's just about the psychology of it. Keep the money coming for Comic Relief.
Keep it coming.
All right, thank you so much, Mark. Woo! And we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to have fact number 15 with Anuvab Pal. We'll see you then.
Hi everyone, well, I have just woken up 2 days after we did that Comic Relief 20-hour marathon. I really hope you enjoyed the video that you just watched. There's plenty more where that came from, so do watch them all. But in doing so, we have a deal. You watch the videos, you also have to pay. So go to comicrelief.com/fish. The link is just down there. And please give us anything you can afford, because all the money that you can send us will be given to amazing causes. Please do donate now.